Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have gone peak gay today and have thrown on not just a flannel and a rainbow shirt, but a flannel that I stole from my girlfriend. So that's where I'm at today. Now, I don't need to tell you what's happening in the world. I'm assuming that you already know. But I put out on Twitter that I have not been reading a lot lately because quarantine brain, but I have been watching a lot of movies and TV and playing video games and all that kind of stuff, and I asked if people would be interested in getting a sort of rundown on the things that I've been finding comforting in this time, and some people said yes, so here we are. So in this period of time, I have found that a lot of what I want to do is not go out and experience new things, it's I want to re-experience things that are really comforting to me because they're things that are familiar, that I don't need to worry about so much. I know it's going to happen already. I can just sort of relax and let it happen. So most of these are things that I have already seen or already read and I'm revisiting. Also, just a quick caveat. Obviously, none of these are going to solve the problem. None of these are a substitution for therapy or medication or any kind of significant mental health wellness, but they are things that make me feel better, that lift my spirits, that bring me comfort, and that's what I want to do today. So I'm going to start off with books because this is a booktube channel. That's kind of what you're here for. So some of my old favorites that I have been finding myself returning to lately have been the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner. I did just recently reread the first book of these when I have been doing reading. It's either been the Witcher series or the Queen's Thief series. This is my first time rereading this series. I read it for the first time a couple years ago, and it improves on reread so much. This entire first book is decent when you read it the first time. When you read it the second time, it is excellent because there's so many things that are revealed by the end of the book that it is so good to go back to the beginning and see how those are kind of threaded throughout the story. It's funny because on your first reread, this is the weakest of the series. It probably still is, but on reread, it improves so much because there's so many things that you see peppered throughout the story that you just don't know to look for before. That's really the only books that I've been reading right now, but some of my old favorites that I do find myself returning to a lot are Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. It is lovely and funny and very self-aware of fantasy tropes in a way that's really enjoyable. I also highly recommend the movie, although the movie is it has a very Miyazaki Japanese sensibility to it, whereas the book has a very British English sensibility to it. And I love both of them, but they do have different moods almost. Another one is just really anything Jane Austen. I would say in particular, my favorites are Pride and Prejudice, which is a classic. This one is my copy from when I took a Jane Austen class in undergrad because I'm that kind of queer. And then I would say Persuasion is another one of my favorites. This one is a lot more melancholy though, so depending on what kind of mood you're in, this may or may not be good for you. If you're looking for something that's going to be really funny, lift your spirits, maybe not so much, but sometimes you want to just cry about missed opportunities and growing older and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, depending on how you're feeling, Persuasion is amazing. And then Emma, which the title is a little bit obscured by this big sticker. This one is one of my favorites. It is sometimes people's least favorite because the main character is a little bit more self-absorbed than some of her other heroines, but I really love her because she is spoiled, but you can see how she got that way, and you can see that underneath that she's a really good person trying to help her friends and the people that she loves. She's just going about it in not a great way. So yeah, I love Emma. It's also very funny and is something that I love returning to. And so my final old favorites recommendation, oh shoot, I should put Tamora Pierce and Discworld on there. Okay, I do recommend Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, but it is an extremely long series with a lot of different potential best places to start at, and I don't have time to run down all of those things. So if you are interested in reading Discworld, I'll have my like social media link down below, or you can leave a comment. I don't have time to go into it. So my final old favorite recommendation, I have a couple more after that, are the P.G. Wodehouse, particularly the Jeeves and Wooster novels / short story collections. This is a short story collection. I think that the short story collections are wonderful places to start. They give you an sort of overview of the characters and the setting and the style of the stories without needing to commit to a whole novel. Honestly, you can read them in any order. The novels do kind of they really just have continuing characters, and occasionally those characters have slight developments in terms of like, are they married or not? But like, in terms of the actual story, you can read them very standalone. They don't really follow a continuous narrative. So they're very funny. They're like sunshine, you know, in that they're kind of ephemeral, but they're really warming and they just bring you joy. So yeah, you can look it up on Wikipedia, like what the first one is, but you don't need to start at the beginning. If you have a library card, just search Jeeves and Wooster and just see what's available, because I'm guessing they will have some available because they've been in print for such a long time. Really, any one of these is a great place to start, and they're just super comforting and funny. So those were my like old favorites, ones that I've read a lot that I keep going back to. But if you are in the mood for something genre specific, for example, a romance novel, I would highly recommend the Reluctant Royals series by Alyssa Cole. I read all of these from the library, so I don't have them, and I think that romance novels are a wonderful way to use your library. So the Reluctant Royals series is one of those where just like, it's a series, but each book focuses on a different like main character, but they're all sort of interwoven. They all show up in each other's books. And the first one of the series is my least favorite, just because it uses a particular trope that I am not a fan of, which is someone lying about their identity. I think that it is handled well, but it is just a trope that I hate. And essentially it is about an orphan girl who grew up in the foster care system in the US who is like an epidemiologist PhD student, and it turns out that she's actually an African princess. That's the kind of realism that we're working with here. The second one, which I think might have actually been my favorite of the series, although I did also really like the third one, is like her best friend, the girl from the first book, her best friend goes to Scotland and ends up like hooking up with this swordsmith that turns out to actually be a duke. Like I said, this series is just kind of preposterous, but in a way that is really charming. Her character interactions are really lovely. There's obviously a lot of diversity in the series. I like blitzed through all of them, and if your library has them, I definitely recommend checking them out. Now, if you're in the mood for a mystery, actually, another one of my old favorites is Sherlock Holmes, as you can tell by the Sherlock Holmes collection that I have over on my shelf there. But if you are looking for a modern-day cozy mystery, I recommend the Noodle Shop. Is it just the Noodle Shop Mysteries, or is there another word there? Noodle House Mysteries? Anyway, the first one is Dim Sum of All Fears, if I'm remembering correctly. The titles and plots have blurred in my mind, but this is another one that just is very formulaic, but in a way that can be really comforting, because then you sort of know what to expect. There's not a ton of surprises, but it is still a fun time. So, that was it for books. I do want to talk about movies and TV now. One of the things that we've been doing are rewatching movie series, and so we started with the Fast and the Furious series. This was a rewatch for me. It was the first time watch for my girlfriend. I adore this series. It is so stupid. It is so enjoyable. It is so hilarious to watch where they started with where they are in the franchise now. Like, if you guys have seen Fate of the Furious and Hobbs and Shaw, and then you go back and watch just the original The Fast and the Furious, I mean, first of all, they're babies. Vin Diesel and Paul Walker are tiny. And also just the fact that they started out as petty thieves stealing DVD players out of semi-trucks, and then they end with fucking... What happened in Fate of the Furious? I think this is the one where they're like on the ice and they fight a submarine with sports cars. I unironically love this series so much. It's not great with its female characters, but the whole thing is just found family, pretty people, cars go fast. It is a phenomenal movie series if you are bisexual, and you don't have to think too hard. So the other movie series that we recently just finished a rewatch of is The Lord of the Rings. Now, because I am that kind of nerd, I do own them all. The extended editions, obviously. I feel like I don't need to say much about Lord of the Rings. If you don't know what it is, who are you? But also, if you've never seen the extended editions, I did not understand why people were so intensely fanish about Lord of the Rings until I saw the extended editions. And obviously, your mileage may vary, but I saw the movies when I was in middle school, that was when they came out. I was in middle school. I'm kind of old. And I liked them, but they didn't stick. I just watched them, enjoyed them, was done. I also then went and read the books as a 13-year-old, which they're not well written for adults, let alone 13-year-olds. I finished them, technically. I didn't like them. I thought that they were too wordy. They spent like 50 pages talking about how there was going to be a battle, and then the battle would happen, and then there would be another 50 pages of like the aftermath of the battle, but the actual battle had been like a paragraph. And I was just like, this is so boring. Oh, this is so boring. So yeah, I appreciated certain things about them, but it wasn't until I got to college and I watched the extended editions, because so much of what they had to cut were character backstories and world backstories and things that actually made me care about the people that were doing these things. Okay, my battery died, so I went to play Okami for like an hour and a half. And I kind of lost track of what I was talking about. I also got hungry, so I'm going to be eating for this next little bit. Sorry. I know I was talking about Lord of the Rings. So if somehow you have watched or read Lord of the Rings, but you have never seen the extended editions, I highly recommend them. Especially if you were kind of like me and just sort of on the fence about them. This will give you a lot more insight into the characters and the world, and you'll have a lot more feelings about it. So, to talk about some TV shows, one of my all-time favorite TV shows, especially all-time favorite comfort shows, is one that is pretty popular, so probably a lot of you already know about it, but it is The Great British Bake Off. Not The Great British Baking Show. I don't care if Bake Off is a copyrighted term in the US. They had to change it to Baking Show. It is GBBO. It is The Great British Bake Off forever. Period. End of sentence. I am personally a particular fan of the Mel and Sue seasons of GBBO. I feel like they have a wholesomeness and a drama-freeness that is a little bit lacking in the more recent seasons. They moved from BBC to another network, and they got new hosts, and I like the new hosts, but the new network kind of felt the need to, like, up the drama factor a little bit, so, like, by the time you get to the finale, they're asking them to do things that are just preposterous. Anyway, I could go off on a rant about GBBO, but let's focus on the good stuff. I feel like this video has suddenly turned into a mukbang. Should I do one of those? Comment down below. Okay, so if you're in the mood to watch some very gentle competition with some beautiful food, I would recommend watching it with food. This is one of those shows that if you watch it and you don't have any food in front of you, you're just like, I want snacks. Yeah, get some of your favorite snacks, maybe even bake something yourself, and then watch lovely, funny British people have adventures and mishaps in the tent. There's a lot of puns, which as a bisexual, I'm all over. Another one of my favorite TV shows to watch when I need a break from reality is Love Island, specifically the UK edition. I discovered this one pretty recently. It's on Hulu. It's not a good show. It is, in fact, a very bad show, but it's just kind of amazing. It is one of those, like, Bachelor, Bachelorette type shows, only it's just, like, a bunch of single people on some tropical island. They wear bikinis the whole time. Too Hot to Handle is the new version of that, where they're not allowed to have sex, which is just so stupid. Anyway, watch Love Island. It's marginally better than some of the other options. So, another one of my favorite things that I've been watching, this is more of a YouTube recommendation. So, I don't know how many of you are into sports. I am not particularly into sports, but this past summer, my partner and I and a couple other of our friends traveled to France and attended the Women's World Cup. So it turns out I'm kind of a fan of women's US soccer. There are a lot of very attractive people, a lot of very attractive queer people, a lot of very attractive queer women being very competent and very athletic. It's good for me. And there are a lot of really awesome games that are now free to view on YouTube, the entire game, because it's like FIFA and the US women's national team accounts. They're releasing these full games. In particular, I think FIFA is doing a World Cup at Home, which is like replays of famous and really like excellent quality World Cup games over the past like decades. There was the semifinal against England has aired that we were actually in the stands for, and it was such a good game. So I will put a link to that one below. This is not necessarily on brand for me, but some of you might be interested, and I've been enjoying it. So there we go. So I do have some recommendations that don't really fit into a category. I'm calling them general. And these are things that are not something that you read or watch, but just something that you can experience, I guess. So one of those is fancy candles. I have many recommendations for this. In the Wick of Time is a lovely shop. I believe you can find them on Etsy. Come on, focus on that. But they are all, as you can tell, book related. So I really enjoyed those. Frostbeard Studio is another one. Come on, focus. Focus. No. I'm doing the beauty blogger thing, but it's not working very well. Frostbeard Studio does a lot of, again, book-related candles. This one that I have is Sherlock's Study. You're not going to be able to read that, but they have a lot of really good ones. I think their production is paused right now, but something to keep in mind for the future. And then if you're not looking for specifically book-related, I do really like PF Candle Co. This is another... it smells so good. This is their Sunbloom scent, which is a new one. It is like floral, but not sickly. It's like desert floral. It's so good. I also really love their Amber and Moss. Also, this one is not a like olfactory experience. It is an experience of the eyes. So this candle started out as a cat, and as you burn it, the cat skeleton slowly gets revealed. I love this. It is exactly my kind of macabre humor. You can tell I'm about halfway done with it. It is one of my favorite things. You do have to be careful about where you burn it though, because the wax just pools at the bottom, so you want to have some kind of like dish or even just like newspaper or something for it to drip on. Another sort of general favorite is tea, which duh, but also specifically I really am loving this chrysanthemum tea. I first got it at a Chinese garden in Portland, but you can buy it online, and as far as I know, they're still like active. It's also where I got that sexy glass teapot, and it is non-caffeinated, so if that is a thing where caffeine makes you anxious, don't have to worry about that. It is really soothing to the throat and to the body, and you can re-steep it like multiple times. It has a very mellow flavor, but I find it really warming and calming. And also, if you're dehydrated, that's not good for anyone. So drink water, drink tea, maybe drink some fancy chrysanthemum tea. Nothing makes you feel more like a princess than having flowery tea in a glass pot. If you have the fancy tea, drink the fucking fancy tea. Now's the time. And then this last sort of general recommendation is one that I have to caveat. So if you live in a state or country where it is legal, and if you are of age and of the body chemistry type that reacts well, I highly recommend getting stoned on marijuana and doing yoga. I might have just lost like 90% of you, but hear me out. First of all, hi, I'm your weed cousin. But also, there is something about doing yoga while high that it like puts you in your body in a way that is really intense and not necessarily a way that you can get to while sober. Now, I will say, I don't recommend smoking at this particular point in time, given the risk of lung complications, but edibles, tinctures, anything like that where you're not compromising your respiratory system, I recommend it, particularly an indica strain, which is the one that's going to really put you in your body. I do have some particular yoga videos that I think are really good starting points. Again, I will put those in the links down below, but I will put a range of like difficulties. Beginner, where it's really like comfy and cozy, moving to sort of more strenuous. I really love Yoga with Adriene as a particular channel. She has a really great sensibility. She's really calming. Anyway, I might have just lost a whole bunch of you with that one, but let me try to bring it back in with some video game recommendations. So there are a few video games that I find myself returning to, and one of which is Stardew Valley. I've mentioned this on vlogs before, so this is not a huge surprise, but it is available on a bunch of different platforms like Nintendo Switch, it's available on mobile, it's available on your PC, there's just a lot of different ways that you can get it. And it is so charming, it is so calming, there's so many different things that you can do, it's very open world explory. I mean, you're like limited to the like little valley town, but there's like no deadlines that you have to meet, or there's just like, it's no pressure. You can just kind of take your time and do whatever you feel like. It also costs about $15 and is available on a bunch of different platforms, unlike the next one that I'm about to recommend, which is Animal Crossing New Horizons. This one has blown up on the internet. I am sure you have heard of it. Time passes in real time, so you can spend a few hours playing, and in Stardew Valley that'll advance you like 3 or 4 days, and in Animal Crossing New Horizons it's literally been 2 hours. So that one is kind of a pro and a con, because I do actually like in Stardew Valley that you can like play through a year in, you know, a week, as opposed to playing through a year in a year. But it's a different playing experience. So anyway, Animal Crossing is also much more social friendly, like playing with friends is much more compatible. You can play co-op in Stardew Valley, and I have been doing it, and it's really fun. But I feel like there's still some kinks to be worked out with Stardew Valley co-op, whereas with Animal Crossing I feel like it's very built into the world. So that is one thing that I like about it, that it feels much more social. So my next video game recommendation is one that I have actually not personally been playing, but my partner that I live with has been playing a lot, and because we live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, I am often watching her play this game, which is Breath of the Wild. This is another one that I think is only available on the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo Switches are apparently hard to come by right now. But if you happen to already have one, then I definitely recommend Breath of the Wild if you're looking for something that again is very open world, but is much more adventure based than something like Animal Crossings or Stardew. You can do so many different things in it. There are all these different side quests that you can complete. You can train horses and then they become your friends, and then you can ride your horses all over the country. It is beautifully rendered. The graphics are absolutely stunning while not being like hyper realistic, which is sometimes a problem that I find with video game graphics, is they get like too good and then you hit the uncanny valley. Like, it's still very stylized and like animatized, but the graphics are just stunningly gorgeous, and you can climb up like these massive towers and you can just like look out over the countryside and everything's beautiful, and it's basically a way to pretend that you're going outside when we can't really go outside. So the final video game that I am recommending is honestly really similar to Breath of the Wild in terms of gameplay style, but in terms of aesthetic is very different. This is Okami. This one is also available on more than just the Switch. It is available on PlayStation. I don't know if it's available on PC, but it's available on many consoles. And in Okami, you play as the wolf god Amaterasu, who is also the sun goddess, and you cast spells and techniques by drawing like lines and shapes with a calligraphy brush that is the tip of her tail. It is delightful, it is adorable. The whole idea of the game is that you are running around feudal Japan and ridding it of darkness and demons, and so you get these gorgeously animated scenes of like purifying an area, and like the clouds lift away and flowers bloom and the animals come back, and it's very, very satisfying. You also get to feed animals as a like function of the game. You feed like groupings of wild animals. They give you praise, which is how you level up because you're a god. And then forevermore, they have little hearts around their heads afterwards to indicate that you've already fed them because they love you now. It is such a beautiful game. The art is like calligraphy style, so it's like 2D elements on a 3D plane. So it'll be like the trees will seem very 2D, but they're like stacked 3D. It's really difficult to explain, but it is so beautiful and calming to play. It's a very forgiving game, so there are lots of ways to get sort of like restarts if you die, which I don't think I have ever like completely game over died playing this game. And I'm not great at video games. I don't play them a ton. So it's a very soothing, calming, lovely game about like purging things and making them beautiful and making animals love you. And what else can we ask for than that? If I had to pick my favorite video game ever, I would probably pick Okami. And that probably tells you something about me, huh? Anyway, that is going to be it for today's video of comforting movies and TV shows and video games and activities that you can do while you are stuck at home or, you know, not stuck at home, but very stressed out. So I definitely want to hear from you guys. What are some things that you've been finding comfort with lately, whether it's books or movies or anything, down in the comments. And I will hopefully see you guys soon with another video. Like I said, I haven't been reading a ton, but if people are interested in videos that aren't just, here's what I've been reading lately, then I'll see when I can find some time. The next few weeks are very busy for me because they are the last like 3 weeks of the semester, and that means that all of those semester-long projects are coming due in the next like 3 weeks. But then I get summer session, which will be much lighter, and hopefully I'll have a lot more time to do this kind of stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye! You do, I'm catching on. You string me along. You do, don't you? I'm catching on.